Today is December 8th and it's episode 59 of the Voices of Boyle podcast. Today's guest is Margaret Rattigan, a local artist who hasn't always called Boyle home. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed chatting to Margaret. Welcome to the Voices of Boyle, Margaret. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Florence. Lovely to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Not at all. Great to have you. It's great to get a perspective from somebody that wasn't born in Boyle. So we'll start, I suppose, Margaret, at the very beginning. You actually were born in Manchester.
That's right, yeah.
And you spent time in London.
Yes.
And Sligo, Leitrim.
Yeah, Leitrim. I was reared in Leitrim.
Reared in Leitrim.
Yeah.
So take us back, I suppose, Margaret, to the very beginning and being born in Manchester and then making the move to Leitrim.
Yeah, so I was born in Manchester and all our family moved back to Ireland, to Leitrim, back in the early 70s. I was reared in Leitrim, went to school in a place called Drumreilly, just outside Ballinamore. And when I was in my early 20s, then I went to London, like lots of people back in the 80s. I spent 15 years working in London, and then myself and my husband moved back to Limerick, actually, initially, about 20 years ago, and then eventually found myself back up in the northwest of Ireland, which I call home. So it was so nice to be up home. So I'm working in Sligo, still am, but it was just nicer to be near where my family are from. My parents are still alive and they're still living outside Ballinamore, so it's nice to be near home.
So they're still in Ballinamore?
Yeah, they're living in Drumreilly, still, going strong, thank God.
Brilliant.
I'm very fortunate that they're in great health and doing well. So, and me living up here in the northwest makes it so much handier to kind of get to visit them and see them.
Exactly. And Margaret, what led you to Boyle specifically?
So Boyle, when we first moved up to Sligo, we were looking for somewhere to live because we had been living down in Limerick for such a long time. But we were living in Sligo at the time, renting. And then I always had a dream to live beside the sea, and I still have that dream to live beside the sea. But we wanted to be practical as well. So it was Boyle was just ideal because it was halfway between, I suppose, Ballinamore and Sligo. Very practical for work and handy to get home. So, and I always loved Boyle, and Forest Park was probably one of my favourite places when I was a child. So it was actually an easy decision, and I was able to compromise in the sea with a lake.
Yeah.
So we're living quite close to Lough now. So it's lovely. So that's why we ended up in Boyle.
Brilliant. So you're near water.
Near water, yeah, exactly, yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned there, Margaret, you went to Lough when you were younger.
Yeah.
So do you have many memories of that? Can
yes.
you share some of those maybe?
I think the first memory I had of it, I think we just stopped off once. Like I was quite young. We must have been coming down from the hospital in Sligo or something. And we stopped off at in Lough Forest Park, and I thought it was like something out of a fairy tale. I'd never seen anything like that before, like the castle and the island. I just was blown away by it, and I always wanted to go back and visit. And then when I got into my late teens and whatever, with friends, we used to go and visit and go down to Lough Forest Park on our day off. Back then the tunnels were open.
Yes,
you could get into the tunnels, and so it was just a real magical place. And even to this day, I find it a magical place. And with my art, it's one of my biggest inspirations, living in Boyle, the whole area around Lough.
I imagine all those years ago when you first visited, you never thought, I suppose, back then that eventually you'd live very close to it and beside the lake itself.
I know.
It's mad how it works out.
Yeah, it is actually, because I always thought it would be amazing to be living with something like that on your doorstep. But yeah, it is. It's a real privilege to be living here. So delighted, yeah.
And Margaret, did you venture into Boyle town itself back then, or would you have many memories of that?
A few times, yeah. So I do remember probably in my early 20s going through Boyle. And I'd have stopped off to get something to eat, whatever. I just remember, my memory of that was a very old, you could see the history everywhere. Like obviously now I know more about Boyle now that I'm living here, but I remember the brick King's House, looking at that, thinking that was amazing. And the Abbey, just to see that like back then you drove past that going to Sligo on the Sligo road, whereas now the new road takes you, you don't necessarily go past the Abbey when you're going to Sligo from Carrick-on-Shannon, but back then you did. And it was just, just so historical. And I've got a real love for history. So that would have been something I'd have really noticed back then. And even though I'm from Ballinamore, there's loads of ancient places around Leitrim and Ballinamore. It was just, you could really see it in Boyle with the stonework and the abbey and everything. Yeah, it was really, really nice place to see.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah. It
and
is.
even like you could drive through 10 towns in Ireland and you wouldn't see as much history as you would when you go through Boyle.
Yes, because even that bridge that I go over a lot, I went over it today to get to the interview today. That's the oldest bridge in Ireland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, the oldest
on the
stone
Abbeytown
bridge,
Road. Yeah.
And if you look the way it's built, there's some features of it that were only tied to that period. So it's just crazy how far it goes back. And then the history of, I think it was initially built, actually, I could be wrong on this now, as a toll bridge.
Okay.
So to collect tolls coming in and out of town, I think.
Okay.
Could be stand corrected on that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your art and your creative work, Margaret. So I suppose we're going to talk mainly about that today. And as well, we can tie in about Boyle and how that impacts your inspiration and things like that. So you definitely have a love for different forms of creativity.
Yeah.
So I suppose, can you talk us through your artistic journey and your different forms of art and creativeness that you like to do?
Well, I'm one of 9. I've got 8 siblings, 6 sisters, 7 girls altogether in the family.
Wow.
And 2 boys. So I suppose there was always somebody in the house kind of creative. My mum's very creative. She's very, very good at knitting and crocheting, and I know there's art on her side of the family. And my older sister is a great artist, and probably growing up, she would have been my biggest inspiration. She's got her own art at the moment. It's MauraMacDonaldArt.com, but she would have been a huge inspiration to me growing up. There wasn't much art taught around Ballinamore at the time. There is now, though. I mean, there's amazing stuff going on in Ballinamore regarding art, but back then, no. But I still loved it, and every opportunity I got, I used to draw. In fact, I probably spent most of my time in classes that I didn't like maths and Irish, and those classes I would have been drawing and sketching my classmates. And I would have probably done more doodling than listening in class, if I'm honest. So it was always my dream to go to art college. Now, we didn't have art in the schools, so that unfortunately didn't happen for me back in the 80s. And then life got in the way. So I went to England. I built a corporate career in England. I was able to transfer back to Ireland based on that corporate career. But I didn't really take up art again until COVID.
Wow. Okay,
Yes.
so there's a big gap there.
Big gap. Now, I'd have always been sketching. The pencils would never been too far away.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of kind of really painting and doing the sceneries that I do now and all of that, that all started with COVID. So I had a bit of time off work at the time, and I started doing what lots of people in the country were doing, took up art at the time. And my husband went off and got me an art set out of, I think it was Aldi or Lidl.
The only places we could shop.
That's right. He got me an easel and a few paints, and that was it. I started following YouTube tutorials, and I found that was the one thing that really calmed me during COVID, because like everybody else in the beginning stages, I was really scared, like everybody was. The stories that was coming out of China and Italy were terrifying. Mm-hmm. And I worked in the pharmacies. I work in the pharmacy sector, so it was high risk where we were working. And the one thing that did because at the time we didn't know what we were dealing with either.
Yes.
So that's what made it frightening. But one thing calmed me down was actually art. And as soon as I started painting, that was it. Straight away, fine, calmed down, everything. And then and that was it. I carried on painting, started developing my art, and when I found I painted a tree and it actually looked like a tree, I was delighted. And that was it. And I carried on. It was just practice, and I kept going. So I've done a few online tutorials. There's a lady up in Sligo. Her name is Pauline McGowan. She did an online oil painting class, and I did that. So that kind of helped me develop some, good habits and good skills as well. And just carried on, trying new things. And I look at people's photography as well. I looked at yours, Florence.
Yeah.
I get inspired by people's photography, and if there's a few people that's very generous and allow me to use their photos. I do photography myself, but actually I love looking at other people's and using them as reference photos. So I know Val, know Val Robles.
Yes,
yeah,
she was on the podcast.
That's right. I heard her podcast actually, and she kind of allowed me to use it, so very kindly gave me permission to use a few of her photos. And there's quite a load of photographers around that are very generous with their photos, and I love to use those because I love looking at other people's work and seeing what I can make of it and put my own slant on it. And that's how my art practice developed. Like when I was younger, I wanted to do art school and become a fashion designer and all of this because I love sewing as well. But actually, I was too young to know what I wanted back then. So funnily enough, after all these years in the corporate sector, I feel like I'm doing what I always wanted to do.
It all worked out.
Yeah, it has, yeah. And it just goes to show it's never too late.
Yeah.
So, and then everyone's been very supportive. Like I started selling my work online about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago actually. And I couldn't believe it that people would buy my work. Like my youngest sister, Paula, was on my case to get online because I think she was a bit fed up with me giving her all paintings every time I seen her. And she thought, no, I don't want any more of your paintings, sell them. And she was really encouraging because I just didn't want to do it. I was afraid of my life, like anybody is.
It's hard, to put yourself out there. Yeah.
And she was literally texting me all day, have you put up the post yet? Have you put up the post? And I got the post up. It was up on the Shop in Ireland website at the time, the Facebook page. And I was blown away by the response and I couldn't believe it. And like anything else, when you sell your first work, you just feel so delighted, So people have been very supportive since. And I've got some work in the craft shop in town, which has been incredibly supportive of local crafters in Boyle. They've been such a champion of my work, they really have. And I do the courtyard market every so often as well. And that's how I've got to meet some people in Boyle as well, which has been really lovely because I'm not from Boyle and you always kind of feel like a bit of a blow-in when you're not from somewhere. But they've been very welcoming, even if I am a blow-in, they've still been very welcoming and very friendly. So it's very supportive. And that's what I love about Boyle. I love how it supports the arts. The Boyle Arts Festival. Arts
Festival, yes. Yeah. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, so good. The way they kind of support.
You had a painting you had a few paintings actually in the Boyle Arts.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I had a few paintings in McGee's window. So very, very grateful to McGee's for allowing me to have the space there. And Brogan's Pharmacy as well, or the Chemco Pharmacy, they allowed me to have some space in the windows there. So that was really good. And then, of course, I had the painting in the actual An Ríoga, the open exhibition. So that was the one that was inspired by the video that you took.
Yeah, that was lovely, Margaret. Yeah. So just for those, I suppose, that are listening that are kind of like, okay, what's she talking about?
Yeah.
I think it was November last year.
Yes.
It was a really still night, kind of like actually the last few nights, just really still, really cold and really clear. The skies were really clear. I said to Carlo, I was like, I think it's going to be a nice morning in the morning. Let's set the alarm early. So we did. And like that too, we're from Boyle, love Lockheed. But there's just something about it that at every time of the year, it's different. Like you could go out there 3 times, 4 times in the 1 month and see different things and the place can look different. But this morning was probably the nicest morning I've ever been out there. It was just pure still. The lake was like glass. It was kind of frosty, cold, but there was like swans. You'd swear now they were placed there specifically for the video, but they just came across. It's like they were just gliding along the lake. And the castle just looked amazing. It was all clear. And then the swan just put up the wings and did a little dance for us. And I just put the video up on Facebook. Margaret had seen it. And of course, I put some nice music to go with it. And she texted me and she was like, oh my God, the video, can I use this as inspiration for one of my paintings? So she did. And she created the most amazing piece of art from that video.
Yeah.
And I'm going to I'll put a picture to it in the post so people can see it. But it was incredible. And like that too, isn't it so lovely? Like obviously when I took the video, it was just to take the video and I knew I'd put some music to it and put it up online just because it was so amazing. But then you get inspiration from that and create something even more wonderful from it.
Yeah, it was just lovely and that's what's nice about looking at other people's work because just a talent out there and the way they see things.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really interested in, how people actually see and their angle and the composition that they use. And then I can use that then. And sometimes I adapt it. I think with your video, I think I might put a few images together to get what I wanted, which was the castle and the swans. So yeah, it was a gorgeous video. Really lovely video.
It's a beautiful painting. And I do always wonder then, Margaret, because obviously you have so many pieces. So when it comes to choosing pieces, say for the windows during the Boyle Arts, is that hard? Like, would you be like, oh, I know what I want that one, that one, that one, that one? Or would you be like torn between different pieces?
Yeah, that can be very difficult. And I suppose I'm still very much in an early stage of my art journey. So creating my own work is probably the biggest challenge I have at the moment. So, and how I did it this year was I put some watercolours in brogans, because I obviously had to adapt it to the space that I was given as well. So I put some watercolour work in there, and I put then some more florals and vintage style paintings in McGee's. I thought it would go with the colour of the backdrop, because obviously it's their window, it's their business window. And I was really happy with the way they placed it for me. And I was very fortunate. I sold one of my paintings from McGee's, and I sold two from Chemical Pharmacy. So,
Fantastic.
It's great to have that space in Boyle, because it is, it can be limiting sometimes finding the space where to put your work, but it's great to see it opening up more and more. I mean, there's the Onriega building now has been used to show off art, and there's loads of places around. I'm a part of Sola's Art Gallery in Ballinamore as well. I'm on the committee for that, and there's loads of artists from Boyle and from around Boyle in the Sola's Art Gallery, and it's nice to be involved in that, because it's my home where I was reared and where I went to school. But it's also lovely to meet other artists and to see them. You get to know more people all the time, and you learn all the time. So you never really stop learning. So curating can be difficult. I've applied for a solo exhibition in Solas, so I need to start get my thinking cap on there. If I do get accepted, because I don't know yet, and what kind of work I'm going to put into that when the time comes for that. So yeah, it's and I'm still trying to find styles as well. So I'm experimenting with so many different styles at the moment. So I like to paint everything.
But it's so new, like 4 years.
Yes, it is probably relatively new when you see
like
the experienced artists
in your
out there.
journey,
Yeah. So I suppose I always loved it, but in terms of painting and the way I'm painting now, would have been like I'd have never taken up and done it as much when I was younger, and there just wasn't the opportunities either. What's really opened it up though, I think, is the online, because I started off online. I would never have approached a gallery in the beginning. I wouldn't have even known how to do that really, if I'm honest, but online is where I started, whereas I suppose a lot of established artists, they would have been well used to going through galleries, and online was probably new to them. So I'm probably doing it all in reverse. And I'm still trying to learn more as well. I mean, I'd love to maybe do more courses, possibly, even consider go back to college, which is my dream when I was a teen.
Yes.
Maybe one day that might happen, if I go back to college, and even if it went back on a part-time basis or something like that, and try and develop my talents even more. So that's something I'd like to do down the line, possibly. As I said, it's never too late, so why not? The time will pass anyway.
Exactly. Good, Margaret. The time will pass anyway. It's what you do with it.
Absolutely.
And you just mentioned briefly there about the solo exhibition in the Solas Gallery. So I just wanted to ask you about, they call it writer's block. So I suppose when you're creative, you can go through these spurts of like being really motivated, inspired by everything, and and then you can go a real lull and kind of be like stuck, and what do I do? Writer's block. How do you deal with that, or have you hit a wall?
That can happen, yeah, definitely, and that can be quite tricky. So what I do whenever I've literally got a list of paintings that I want to do. I'm always capturing photos, and I have a file on my phone of paintings I'd like to do, and people have asked permission for photographs off. So it's good to have that, because then I can sketch. So, and what I do if I really feel like I don't know where to start, I'll just start sketching random things. Even if sketch something while I'm in the sitting room, I'll probably sketch the shelves or something, just to keep the practice up with sketching. And then I do a tutorial. That's the simplest thing to do, is do a quick tutorial online, because because you don't have to think about what you got to paint then. You're just kind of learning techniques. So that's what I do whenever I get stuck. And then all of a sudden I get hit with inspiration. That's how it happens with me. It's very, very impulsive. I get hit with inspiration. I've got all these ideas and I kind of want to do them all at once. So I could have 2 or 3 canvases going at the same time. So that's what can happen, yeah.
And Margaret, you touched briefly there on the types of paintings you create, like the watercolours and that. Yeah. Is there a type that you specifically prefer, or you're all round kind of, you want to paint everything, as you said?
I like to paint, probably landscapes is probably
landscapes. Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Landscapes, I probably do more of those than I do of anything, and probably quite a few floral type paintings as well. So around Boyle, the inspirations, that's probably where I started painting my first landscapes really, was Lockheed Forest Park. I think I've done 3 paintings of that. One is Night Full Moon over Lockheed, and then the other one, a local man in Boyle actually gave me permission to use his photograph, Dan Shan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, do you know Dan?
Yeah, I know Dan.
Yeah, lovely photograph. Was
that the one with the sun behind the castle? Or
not the moon, that's the daytime one.
Oh, okay.
The daytime one, yeah. So I think he goes out on his boat and he gets some.
Oh, and his knowledge of Lockheed is phenomenal.
Yeah. So you got a great
So that's
photo.
lovely. So you did Dan's as well?
I did Dan's photo, and I've got prints of that for sale in the craft shop. The nighttime photo was one of my own photos actually, and then I just turned it into a nighttime scene. And then of course your photo, and then I've done the Gaelic Chieftain as well. Mm-hmm. And then probably one of the ones I kind of liked the most actually was a cherry blossom. It's just on the road, the Carrick Road.
Yes, I saw that one.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous because that tree, it's just there before the turn off into Maple Drive. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just the angle of the tree and how it was kind of angling into the field. I still love that tree actually, and it caught my eye one day when it was in full bloom and cherry blossom. It was about 2 months later before I got around to painting it, so I had to just imagine the cherry blossom.
So did you have a picture with you, Margaret? No,
I did. Yeah, I took a photograph, but I took the photograph in June, and then I painted it, but was able to obviously use my imagination with
visualize
the cherry blossom.
it.
Yeah,
wow.
So and I really liked that one because isn't a famous landscape or anything like that. It's just a beautiful spot, which caught my eye, and I thought, oh, I'd like to paint that one. So that's what I love about Boyle. I love the history in Boyle as well. I mean, there's so many things that I hear that I'd love to maybe put a painting towards it, because there's loads of history, what with battles on the Curly Hills and right down to the legend of Una Vaughan. So, there's so much inspiration around here. So, yeah.
We have so many different landmarks as well. And some of them, I actually during the week there took a stroll out to St. Patrick's Well.
Yes.
I don't know, have you been out there? But that's absolutely gorgeous out there. There's a small little well St. Patrick himself visited back in the day, or so the legend says.
Yes.
But there's horses out there, and there's a lovely like a fence, and it's all kind of green, and the river's in the background. It's beautiful.
Is that near Frybrook House?
Yeah, it's way past Frybrook House.
Okay. I'll have to visit
kind of
that.
towards Assy Lynn, kind of there, but like even that, like if you could capture that in one of your paintings.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I suppose, like Lockheed and all that is absolutely stunning. But sometimes it's nice to get off the beaten track a little bit and get maybe the lesser known places.
Yes.
Yes.
That's one of the things I was actually thinking was doing maybe a set of paintings called Hidden Gems.
Yes.
So not necessarily the big famous landmarks, but actually really beautiful spots that mean something to somebody, and that are part of Ireland as well. Like they're Irish scenes, but they're actually in specific places. I kind of love seeing spots like that.
Yeah.
So, and trying to use those for inspiration for paintings as well.
Good idea. There's some inspiration now. You're creating even while you're sitting talking.
Absolutely, yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about your nieces and nephews? So you were saying that you get great inspiration from them.
Yes, I do. Particularly, I've got 10 nieces and nephews.
Oh,
my God.
wow, have you?
If I get that wrong now, I'll be in so much trouble. I have particularly the youngest one. Her name is Ava, and she's living in Kinsale in Cork, and she loves art as well. So when we're together, there's just painting and drawing, and that's really what's going on the whole time. I think the last time she was with me, she was making jewellery. I had her set up in one of the tables beside me. I make jewellery for my art as well, and I had her set up with stuff that was obviously safe for 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I had her making her own jewellery. So she's very inspirational. I've got quite a lot of illustrations with Ava in them. I just, because she's so expressive and such great fun, she's a very easy inspiration to be drawn, sketching her all the time. I have another nephew then, he's great as well. His name is Rian. He helps me at some of the craft fairs. So he's like, he's 12, but I call him my marketing manager because he's just soaking all up the knowledge around retail, selling. You know, I have a commercial background, so which helps, and I'm teaching him as well. So, but he's really interested in the art. And he's very creative as well. So I have lots of help from nieces and nephews whenever I need to call upon them. But particularly Ava, she's like my muse.
Oh, and how old is Ava?
Ava's going to be 6 this week.
Oh, bless.
No, next week she's going to be 6. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And isn't that fantastic for the young fella to be out meeting people and kind of like their life lessons that you can never learn from a textbook?
Yeah, he's great.
You know.
He was with me last week. I was in the Sligo Russell Craft Fair in Ballyconnell, and he was there with me, supporting me. And he's been to a few now with me, actually. He's a great help.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, we could hire him full time now. We're doing well.
We don't encourage dropping out of school, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no.
And old photos then, Margaret, do you take inspiration from those, looking back at some of the older photos?
Yes, I do. And I've actually, interestingly enough, I found a photograph I took 30 years ago. I actually have always loved photography, and I was doing photography, dabbling in that about 20 years ago. So I have loads of scenes on my own old computers I must pull off, actually. But one particular photograph I took was actually in Mayo. It was a cottage in Mayo, just very near Navan. And it was a photograph I was delighted that I took because I got the composition right and everything. It was back in long before mobile phones, 35mm camera. And I routed that out there a few weeks just before the Boyle Arts Festival, actually, and I painted that. So it's literally like a country cottage. It is like something out of a postcard, and that's what I always thought the photograph was like. So it did replicate well in the painting. So that's one of the other things I must have a look at, actually, is my parents' photographs. Like, we've obviously got lots of old photos at home, and where their home places were as well. My dad was from Curling, Cavan, and my mum was from Dunlow and Donegal. So, you know, they have got photographs from their home places, so that could be something I could maybe have a look at as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and bringing it back to life then, 30 years, or in some cases maybe if you go through their albums even longer.
Yeah, even longer.
Bringing them back to life.
Definitely. Yeah.
And Margaret, let me see the exhibitions we talked about. You mentioned Onriga and the Solace Centre in Ballinamore. And the craft fairs. So talk to us a little bit about the craft fairs, and you do be in at the Boyle Market here, the Courtyard Market, every so often, and the Christmas markets you hope to do as well.
Yes, yeah. So obviously it's going into Christmas now. So yeah, there's quite a few markets coming up. I was funny enough, I was doing one in Ballinamore yesterday as well. I'm working. I had a period of illness last year, but thankfully back to work now. But I am working part-time now, which is great. It helps my health, but also it gives me an opportunity to kind of focus on the art as well, which is brilliant. So the craft fairs that are coming up, there's a King's House one coming up, actually.
Yeah,
that's coming up the 29th, 30th of November. I did that last year. It was a lovely market, and I got to meet loads of people at that one. I don't know if I've got that one yet because you have to apply. I've put in my expression of interest. So I think it's next week we'll find out who's actually got into that market. So fingers crossed. But it's a lovely market, really nice one. The crafters are really good there, and they do create them quite well. Like, so they have a really good mixture of all the different crafts that you can get there, and the crafting community is a lovely community,
and it's grown so much, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yeah, so there's great talent. I know last year there was amazing talent in the King's House market. So, fingers crossed, if I get in, that there'd be such great talent again this year.
You'll see Margaret there, hopefully.
Yes. And
talk to us a little bit, Margaret, because obviously moving to a new town and all that can be very daunting, and kind of blending in, as you said, as a blow in, inverted commas. But Talk to us a little bit about how your art has helped you integrate into the community and meet some really good people locally.
Yeah, I think it's been really good because when we first moved to Boyle, it was not that long before COVID kicked in. So we didn't know that many people in Boyle, really. It was more for practical reasons initially that we moved to Boyle. It's only when we moved here, we kind of fell in love with the place, you know. We've the art was a great way to get to know people. There was a little gallery behind Bowls of Boyle there for a long time. Yeah. So that's moved to the Riaga. And I was in there, I was a member there for a couple of years. And there I got to know loads of artists and people in Boyle. But the craft shop was probably the biggest place to get to know people. Anna was working there at the time and she was just
fantastic. Anna's brilliant.
So supportive of the crafts. And I suppose she was the first person I actually spoke to about putting my work in because I didn't really know where to start, to be honest with you. And then I got to know her, and I know myself and my husband do go in to the little cafe next door. We'd be in at least once a week, maybe more than that, really. We should really cook our own meals at home, but it's so nice.
You need to get out.
I know. They opened this morning. I was so delighted because I thought, God, if we don't have something to eat there, we will starve. You know. So they're so lovely in there. And that's when you get to know people.
Yes.
And the art really helped that. And then the Boyle Craft Fair as well, getting to know people. And even just getting involved in the Boyle Arts with, speaking to the ladies in the McGee's shop and in Chemco Pharmacy, the staff in there, they're so friendly. So you just get to know more people all the time. So yeah, very friendly, very welcoming, and very supportive of the arts here. And that's one of the reasons I really, really like being in Boyle.
Yeah, because we need to savour that. I suppose with the advancements of AI and things like that, it's getting harder and harder to showcase creative work and kind of get out there. So it's so lovely that it's held in such high regard still in Ireland, and people are still put the value on it, you know, because the AI is just...
I think though, funnily enough, my view on that would be that if anything, AI makes more...
Well, this is what I was just going to say to you, you know, in the beginning, and it's especially, you know, we're into the writing, freelance writing and things like that. So in the beginning, it was all panic. Oh, it's going to take over. But as you just said, it makes the artist's work more valuable.
Yeah, because it's actually quite obvious at the moment.
Oh,
now,
it is. Yeah.
AI is obvious. I'm sure as it gets more and more sophisticated, it'll be less obvious. But you know, I think then if you see AI can produce amazing images. But if you see a piece of art where it's got the brush strokes and you can see the hard work that went into the painting, AI can't really produce that. So, and I think that's where, I would work with AI because at the moment I'm producing another set of Christmas cards, and I'm actually going to use a program, but I put my own artwork into it. Mm-hmm. So I think it can work. It can be very much complement what you're doing if you're kind of using it for making cards and things like that. But in terms of a painstaking painting, AI, I don't think
there's no comparison.
Not unless the robots get paintbrushes in their hands and start doing it.
Yeah.
I can't see.
Not in our lifetime, hopefully.
No, absolutely, yeah. So at the moment, I think it makes real art more valuable.
Yeah. And as you said, the stuff that they are producing, it's a lot of it anyway. It looks like not a 3D, but like just you'd know by looking at it.
Yes,
yeah.
So you'd know an AI image. Yeah. It's when it's. If anything else, an AI image could probably inspire a painting, but they will never replicate the hard work that goes into a painting. I wouldn't even call it hard work. When you're doing something you love, it's not really hard work, but the work that goes into it and the skill that goes into it as well.
Yeah, and the time.
Yes, the time.
Yeah. So it's so lovely to see, and there's a lot of creative people in Boyle as well.
There is,
and it's great that that's been looked after and get the support that you need.
Yes, I've met a few lovely artists around here as well, which is great too. There'll be Nikki Harrington. I think she's from outside Boyle. Don't know if you know her work.
Don't know.
Yeah, she does all the geometric art.
Oh yes, I did see some of it actually.
Yeah, really interesting. So I love looking at other people's work. And then there's Margie Dunn. She's local as well, and so it's nice to get to know the local artists and to really admire their work because I'm always looking at other people's work. So Yeah, and that's what's great about Boyle. But Boyle Arts Festival really brings that together.
It does.
Yeah, and I do think the last 2 years, the last 2 years are probably more involved than they had been before. And I think Brendan Gleeson, I thought the day he did his speech was very inspiring, because he was really showing how art can be for everybody. I think people do get a little bit intimidated with art galleries, and I would have been once actually. I'd have been a bit nervous about going into an art gallery because I thought I don't feel arty enough to be going in. And his speech was brilliant, as the way he said it's for everybody, and Boyle Arts, brings art to the people, and it's in every window, and it's in the An Riaga building, and it's in King's House, and there's so many different forms of art. And I thought that was such a good way of looking at art, and I haven't forgotten that actually. I found his speech quite inspirational. And then this year it was great. It was great crack with Chris O'Dowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I met him as well. So
did you meet him? Yeah, brilliant.
Oh yeah, I always wanted to meet Chris O'Dowd, and I was totally fangirling. But anyway, yeah,
he's a great advocate for Boyle as well. He really does sell it. Yeah. And I saw Dawn, actually, she was on something there during the week, and she mentioned one of the businesses here from Boyle. So it's great that they have that connection.
I've seen that on
Slugs
Facebook.
And Snails. Yeah,
it's nice to get the mentions, and to hear Boyle mention on a was that in the UK? That
it was on, I think. Yeah, Morning or Good Morning or one of those shows.
Yeah. No, it was nice. I seen that as well.
ITV,
actually. I thought,
that's
good. Yeah.
Because I think it's so lovely, like, to just support the smaller businesses.
Yes.
And as you said, as we were saying, the creative people as well. Just to keep that going, because it's hard. It's a hard road. It's a hard slog sometimes. Small businesses.
It can be,
So Margaret, let me see what else. I wanted to ask you, actually, based on your own journey as an artist and an all-round creative person when it comes to different things, what advice would you give to somebody, an aspiring artist that's just starting out? I suppose you've been sketching and that your whole life, but for the last 4 years you've taken it more seriously. So have you learned anything that you'd like to pass on to somebody that might be listening?
Yeah, I think do the practice. So for me, and don't give up. Actually, that's probably the most important thing, because for me, when I started painting first, and they kind of did look like maybe a 5-year-old had done them. I nearly gave up back then, thinking I'll just keep to the sketching, I'll never be able to paint. But actually, I just kept at it. So to me, it was all around the practice. So there's loads of opportunities now as well that wouldn't have been around, when I was younger. But even actually for anyone that's the same age as myself, actually, just get out there. There's loads of classes now. Since COVID, it's really improved. There's a Leitrim School of Art that's in Ballinamore and in Drumshanbo. Yeah. It'd be lovely to have something like that in Boyle.
Heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, so they are, there's so much, you can do, just take up classes and keep up the practice. Probably the best advice I'd say for someone starting out is maybe, don't underestimate the importance of, maybe if you do want to start selling your work, of maybe making commercial decisions around your work and how it's presented and how you present yourself online to sell your work, and not to be afraid to do it, actually, because the hardest thing to do sometimes is put up that first post on social media and to step foot inside the shop that you want to ask them to do your work. But once you're over that barrier, it's and the support that you get is incredible. And just remember, you're your own worst critic. Other people will not other people will not. Your art may not be for everybody, and that's okay as well. So, but people have been, in the most part, been really, really supportive. You'll find your tribe. You'll find the people that like your work, and just keep at the practice. That's the best advice I could give. Yeah.
Great advice, Margaret. And is there any specific moment that has been very rewarding in your journey so far? Like maybe selling your first piece or getting your first yes, or any specific moment that stands out for you?
Oh God, there's probably quite a few, actually. I would say I think it was probably my first sale on the Shop in Ireland website. I got a huge response. I think it might be my second post or something that I put up. I got about 400 likes or something like that. And it was during COVID. So, I did have a captive audience in a way because you couldn't get into shops at the time. But all the pictures that I put up, there's about 4 or 5 paintings I put up. They're all very small paintings because that's all I was doing at the time. And they all sold from that first post. And it was, I mean, that was just a real, you always have a little happy little dance when you make a sale.
Yeah.
But it's such validation as well. And it really does encourage you to keep on the journey. So yeah, I suppose that was probably the big moment. But I have loads of them all the time, because even this year I did Culture Friday in Univon. So that's just when in the courtyard.
Yes, they invited someone in every
in the gift shop, in the craft shop, and I did that, and that was a really nice moment as well. And I wasn't sure anybody would turn up, and I did contact my neighbour Marie Egan, who's lovely. She's lives in the same estate as me. And, I said, would you please come bring people with you? And she did. So it was very nice of her. And there was people I hadn't met before, actually, and they were really good. They were in the photo group here in Boyle.
Yeah.
So it was lovely to meet them. And so that was a really nice moment as well, because I felt very supported by the community. So Anna, the craft shop, I think they're still, I don't know if they're still doing the Culture Fridays at the moment, but they were doing them during the summer, and it was so good. And I got to go down to a few of them as well. So I think that was a nice moment, because that was a little bit outside the norm to do something like that. But I enjoyed that moment as well.
Good stuff. And this might be a bit of you might have to think about this one a bit, but I thought it was an interesting to get your point of view on this. But how do you hope your art resonates with those who buy it? Like, what do you hope they get from it?
That's actually a really good question, because I suppose for me it's the feeling. So people buy art for 2 reasons. Now, this is just my view, as opposed to an artistic view. I think they buy it for how it makes them feel, or they buy it because it might go with the decor in the room. So, and it doesn't matter what, in my point of view, it doesn't really matter why people buy art, because sometimes they have an emotional response to it, and sometimes it is something that really just suits their decor. But one of the things that is really nice is when I get that. And I've had a few people tell me that they have had emotional responses to my paintings, which is lovely to see, because I often have it when I'm painting it. I feel so happy when I've done something that really feels, I know when the painting is finished, because I get a feeling when it's finished. So it's lovely to hear that. I recently did a commission for an old school friend back in Ballinamore. It was one of my first paintings I ever did. It was of just a simple cherry blossom. It was from a tutorial, actually. And it was one of the first ones that I did that the tree looked like a tree. And but it was something that triggered a memory in her. And it meant a lot to her. And I remember she sent me a message that night saying, something along the lines of, you don't know how much this means to me. So it really meant something to her. And then we just kind of forgot about it. I had already given that painting away. And then this year she asked me would I do it for her again. So this is nearly 3 years later. So I painted it again for her, but that's how much it meant to her, that she never forgot the painting. And then I loved painting it anyway, so it was an easy ask. And I was able to paint that for her this summer and give it to her. So I've had a few people say that it's triggered memories, and it's triggered just brought back an emotion, or brought back an emotional response. So that's actually really rewarding to hear that as an artist, that somebody feels something when they see your painting. And sometimes they feel something you didn't even know, because I didn't know. I just put that up. I didn't expect anyone to get that kind of response to it, but it was lovely to hear that. So, and people have said that to me when they've bought my work. So very nice
lovely,
to hear.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that is really nice to hear.
And I suppose because you paint a lot of the landscapes locally as well, it resonates with people that live locally.
Yes.
So I think personally they make excellent gifts.
Yeah.
Because you're just capturing something somewhere that means so much to local people, and isn't it lovely to be able to give that gift?
Yes, yeah. And it's lovely painting landscapes. The Irish just countryside is just full of inspiration. I love doing seascapes as well, because I absolutely love the ocean.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, I can't swim or anything like that, which at my age I should really be able to swim, but I do love just feeling the sea, smelling the sea, getting the peace that you get when you're beside the sea. And I do like to paint that a lot. And I've sold quite a few seascapes of people liking the way I've done, because they've got an emotional response from it as well, which is always really nice. I do an awful lot from Strandhill.
I was just going to ask you, Strandhill, yeah.
Strandhill. There's another beach I did paint, and that was down Ross Bay. I don't know if you've ever been down there to Glen Bay and Kerry.
No, never.
Absolutely gorgeous
Really?
beach. Yes, it's just an amazing beach, the way the waves come in. And I had a photograph that I, again, took about 20 years ago, and I routed that out about 2 years ago and painted it. So Ross Bay Beach is lovely, but Strandhill is a wonderful inspiration. It's got everything on it's got the strength of the sea. It's beautiful. Quite strong up there.
Yeah.
Then you got a lighthouse off in the distance as well. So I often try and capture that too.
Yeah, and it's great for the layers. At certain points, you can see the rocks.
Yes.
Then you can see the sand, and then you can see the sea and the sky. So like the layers is just
there's
so much down there. Yeah, we're blessed. You know, we're not that far away from it.
Yeah, it's great. It's not too far, and Ross's Point is lovely as well. So yeah, loads of inspiration from any ocean pictures that I do as well. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, we've, I suppose, 2 more things to touch on, Margaret. Number 1 is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we haven't touched on?
No, I think we've covered everything. Everything regarding my art, yes.
Good stuff. And second then is tell us all the places where the listeners will be able to find your artwork.
Well, I'm online, so you can get me on... even if you just Google me, actually, you'll find me as Margaret Rattigan, but margaretrattiganart.com. And I'm on Shop in Ireland as well. I'm in the craft shop in Boyle, and I have a small selection of art jewellery in Ballinamore. I'm hoping to get into a few more places soon. I'm currently doing business development. It's a 1 day a week course in the Leitrim Design House at the moment, which is actually a brilliant course, and I'm meeting loads of great crafters there. So fingers crossed that might lead to something as well. And I do intend to try and get into more retailers, particularly going into 2025. Craft fairs is probably where you'll probably see me at between now and Christmas and Boyle, please God, hopefully. But there's a few other local markets. Strokestown, I'm not sure if I don't, because I do work weekends as well in my job. So I've got to try and kind of look at my weekends off, and I have already done that to see what markets I can do. But at the moment, I'm hopeful Boyle, and then I'm in I think 2 weeks before Christmas, possibly the Carrick and Shannon in the dock. They're doing a craft fair in the dock in Carrick, so hopefully I'll be there as well. So that's what it's looking at in terms of local places where I might be. But I think Ballymote are doing a market as well, the 1st of December. So just for people to know that there'd be a craft fair there. But I'm not sure if I can do that one at the moment. But there is a few locally. Just check on Facebook, actually. There's loads of them on Facebook.
Good stuff, Margaret. I was just going to say, so your website, and then you're on Facebook and you're on Instagram.
And I'm on Instagram as well. And I've even ventured into TikTok.
Oh,
which is
wow. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing any
I'm not even on TikTok.
I'm not doing any mad dances or anything like that on there. No, I'm just kind of putting up some little videos of my work.
Yeah, well, really. It's all the go now.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I do get a good response on TikTok, actually. Yeah. And there's loads of artists on there as well. So no, I do a little bit of art jewellery as well. I use my paintings, I print them, miniaturise them right down, and then put them out. For
earrings and necklaces.
Necklaces, yeah. And I like to fiddle. So I like to fiddle with small things. So I put maybe tiny bits of gold leaf, and just to try and kind of put a little bit of razzle dazzle on them. And they're quite popular at craft fairs. Yeah, so they're nice gorgeous. At craft fairs. I do bring prints mainly. Wouldn't probably bring a lot of paintings. Some of my small paintings I take to craft fairs, but I bring limited edition prints, framed, and cards to craft fairs as well.
Brilliant, Margaret. Well, I'd advise anyone that's listening that is looking for something a little bit different, check out Margaret's work. I have one of her prints that she kindly gave to me of the swans in Lough, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you so much, Florence.
So, Margaret, thanks a million for coming on today and chatting to us. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope we see lots of your work locally all around us in the future.
You. And thanks for having me on here. Okay.
Not at all. Thanks, Margaret.
Okay.